Hello and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam and today I'm going to be introducing you to a very special individual, someone that's had a profound impact on my life and my career, and I am so privileged to be able to introduce her to you today. Today I'm going to be introducing you to Kate Krieg. Kate is the founder of Lead Yourself. She's passionate about helping ambitious women who feel stuck to gain clarity, reduce overwhelm, and overcome doubt. Kate's methods have helped her lose 30 kilos and keep it off, which to me is just an amazing achievement in itself. She's also overcome an addiction to stress. She's received academic performance awards, and she's achieved a six-figure income consistently in her business by applying what she teaches. Kate's coaching is super practical and it's tailored to each client. And today she's going to be sharing with us some information about what is going on in our brain and how we can use our mindset to become true leaders in our business and what we do. I know you're going to love her. This is a super fun episode. We had a bit of a laugh, as we always do when we get together. And I am so privileged and blessed to be able to have had this conversation with her. I know you're going to love this. So grab that pen and paper ready, because as always, loads of golden nuggets are going to be speckled throughout here. But tune on in, enjoy. I know you're going to enjoy this session. We'll see you in there. Hey everybody, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. Now, I know you all know me, but I am joined today by a beautiful guest, the beautiful Kate Krieg. Welcome on in, Kate.
Thank you. Oh, beautiful is nice. Thank you very much.
Yes, very beautiful. And inside and out, I'm so excited to have you here today because this is a bit of a blast from the past. I love the fact that I get to chat with incredible humans all over the globe on this podcast. I feel like it's a little bit of a selfish endeavor because although our listeners benefit from it, I benefit from it so much. And what I love about this episode today is I actually get to catch up with one of my favorite humans. Now, you guys know that once upon a time, many moons ago, I worked for the Entertainment Book, and amazing company, was there for 11 years. But one of the most influential people in my career life that sort of popped up right at that pivotal time when I was experiencing my greatest growth and learning period was this beautiful woman in front of us, Kate. And I've got to be very careful because we were just talking about the fact that I know you as Katie and you're now Kate. So I'm going to
use it interchangeably.
Yeah. Okay. So if you guys hear me calling her by a different name, you know what's going on here, but it's Kate, right?
Kate, Katie, whatever you want to call me, babe. Beautiful.
Well, yeah, beautiful will do as well. All of those things. So what I'm super excited about is I get to reconnect with you to talk a little bit about what you're up to now, which is most certainly not the Entertainment Book anymore. But how about you just start, Kate, by telling everybody a little bit about you and what you're up to, and then we'll dive on in because we have got some amazing stuff that I know you're going to cover off on today, and I can't wait to get stuck into it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. You're are welcome. An incredible soul, and I feel very blessed to not only be here, but have such a beautiful history with you as well. So thank you. And now I'm not going to probably rewind to give you background all the way dating back to Entertainment Book, but what I will say is that was a very pivotal time in my life as well. And I've certainly been on my own growth and learning and development course for many, many, many years. And I think we all, if you've got it in you, you just want more of it. So I feel like it's an ongoing journey. But I found myself, I guess, fast forward a few years from Entertainment Book, really climbing the corporate ladder and striving to achieve different executive roles. And I found myself, the last role was a national business principal in an urban planning and architecture firm. Mm-hmm. And I remember I kind of got there and I'd done my Masters of Business Administration, and I kind of got there and I was like, really? Is this it? Like, is that actually all there is? And all there is I was looking around and there were people that weren't like-minded, and I didn't really feel that were really enriching me. I didn't really feel like I was adding value in the way that I really wanted to, and that was important to me. Mm-hmm. And I was really stressed and really overwhelmed, and I just didn't have that clarity in my mind. And I made a really challenging decision, and that was I'm going to leave the corporate career, something that I'd been striving for my whole life, and get rid of the whole entire executive salary from under our family and just lean in. While I was jumping in, I jumped in, I ripped the carpet from underneath me and I jumped in and started my own business. And I guess my own business, so that was back in 2015, I started my own business. And it's very much something that not only do I use, I've learned a lot with neuroscience and neuropsychology and psychology-based tools and mindfulness certification. I've done so much study in the space that I operate in, but I've also applied it to transform the different areas of my life, which I think most people feel is noteworthy more than anything, the things that I'm about to share. Obviously, the idea of leaving a corporate role and starting a new one is pretty massive. But during that time as well, I actually lost 30 kilos and I've kept it off since then, even after having 2 baby girls. I've overcome a lot of different addictions, an addiction to stress, being busy, an addiction to people pleasing, an addiction to lots of different things, you know, including an alcohol habit. And I wouldn't say that I was, you know, an alcoholic, but I certainly wanted to consistently drink and I found it hard to say no. So some of those things that I really overcame. I achieved 6 figures in my business from the first year that I started, and I've been able to consistently do that. Yeah. And I've really just been able to apply a lot of the tools to my own mindset to be able to live with more fulfillment and an inner peace and build my own self-belief to a point that I feel so peaceful and content, and I live with impact. You know, I drive with impact. I don't lead with income, I lead with impact. And that's been something that I've really that's been the key orchestration of my life, and certainly the self-leadership skills that I've developed along the way are what I pass on to other people for them to achieve their life goals and business goals.
Yeah, love that. And I'm super excited about some of the things that you're going to share today. I'm particularly, as you know, a lot of our listeners will know, I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to the psychology side of things. And by no means am I experienced in this space, but I certainly love to understand better how our brains work and, you know, how we can, you know, not so much take control of our lives, but I guess be in the driving seat where we think, you know, consciously we often think that we can't. And one of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about today is that M word that you used, mindfulness, which really for me has probably been a bit of a dirty word for a long time, because you talk about being addicted to stress and really addicted to busy, and you talk about perfectionism as well. And all of those things I think are very typical for particularly women. I'm going to say women here in business specifically. I think, you know, it's like we're out to prove something in many ways to ourselves as much as everybody else. And, you know, I'm fascinated to hear a little bit more about what you've got to say in that space. So do you want to, I've got so many questions and things in here, and I'm going to let you lead the way a little bit. Yeah. And I might sort of pull in and ask a few things as you go, but you know,
already as you've been speaking, right, I want to share some stuff, because like way back when you're like, you know, what's driving us, and our conscious mind knows that some things are going on. So you've really touched into a lot of things at that first stage, right, that I want to directly talk about.
Yeah.
And the first thing is the methodology that I really base, what I base a lot of my coaching on is a self-leadership methodology, which comprises of 3 core areas. And you're talking about mindfulness and how the brain works. Well, this is a way to lead with that. So we really want to make sure that we're self-reflecting. We're engaging that conscious part of our brain to have a look at what is driving our actions and behaviors. I'll elaborate more later. So we want to have that self-reflection to be able to become self-aware. And then we want to be able to self-regulate. We want to be able to address our needs along the way appropriately, so that we're engaging in goal-directed behavior. So we're doing things that are in alignment with who we want to be and how we want to experience the world.
Yep.
So when you said, you know, how does the brain work? And I love learning. Well, let me just say this. So we've got this concept of self-leadership, right? And it comprises of those 3 things. And those 3 things are relating to very much your thoughts, which lead to your feelings, which lead to actions that you take, right? And the results that you get in your life. If we look at the actions, like why are we and how are we acting, most of what we do is driven by what's called our impulsive brain, or our basal ganglia, right? It's the lower part of our brain. That basal ganglia is attached to the amygdala. and the amygdala is emotion driven. So some researchers say around 95% of everything we do is impulsive, reactive, error prone, and charged with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're thinking, well, why do I act and behave in a certain ways, and why am I getting imposter syndrome, and why do I keep doing it? It's because we're driven by our basal ganglia. It's easy, despite how uncomfortable it is, and despite the fact that it's not helping us achieve our goals. It's easy, it's familiar. We have created that brain and those wiring for a reason, because we want to be efficient. So we're driven by our impulsive mind. And so when it comes to mindfulness, and certainly the things that I really care about and subscribe to, it's definitely not the traditional approach to being mindful, because for some people it's too far-fetched, this idea of meditating or being more mindful. How do you do that? Seriously. And
this is my question. How do you stop a busy brain from being what it is?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And we want to be engaging the reflective part of our brain a lot more, so that we can make conscious decisions in the present moment that leads us to goal-directed behaviors. So things that we do and say, and our attitudes that enable us to get to where we want to. Yeah. So how do we stop our busy brains is definitely a loaded question, but ultimately it comes to being aware, and I'll touch more on this later, but being aware of what our busy brains are saying to us in the first place. And we get there first, in my research and experience, we first get there by having visibility of our feelings.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. So let me just elaborate on what that means, if that works. Yep. So you can imagine, as you go around, Sam, I know what your schedule's like. I know how busy you are. I know the amount of things that you've got on, right? And you imagine your day. You start off your day and you've got so much stuff going on. You're like, yep, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get this done. You're getting these distractions, and you might get the setback. You might not be able to find your hair clip, or you might...
This is the conversation we had before this episode, by the way.
Someone might be distracting you at your window when you're trying to do a podcast, right?
This also happens, yes.
So these things may happen in your daily existence, but for other people, it might be an email that you get from a colleague, or an email you get from a customer, or it could that impacts you negatively, or perhaps even positively, but often it's negative. We have sort of a negative interpretation, or our partner looks at us funny. We have these triggering events that cause us to spiral into these thoughts that lead into these feelings, So what we normally do is we suppress and move on. We suppress and move on. We suppress and we move on. We suppress and we move on. And all of a sudden we get to this point of going, why am I procrastinating so much? Why am I feeling so bad? Why am I having a blowout? I know a lot of people are engaging in unhealthy. I don't love to term or label it healthy and unhealthy, but most people know what it means. But we're engaging in unhealthy behaviors. And it's because we've been suppressing the whole time, versus getting some visibility of what just happened then? Am I okay? What am I feeling? And being with that feeling and addressing it versus suppressing. If you see on my social channels, I'm like, address versus suppress. Yep. This is how I lost 30 kilos. This is how I achieved 6 figures in business since year 1. This is how I do things like that, because it's like, what just happened? Am I okay? What do I need? Versus suppress, and just keep being busy.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I love that. That's really powerful. And I know that, this has been a really, actually, we were laughing about this before, because I said, guys, I think this is going to be like just a coaching call. Everyone can listen on in. I'll just have a coaching session with Kate, and then you guys can listen to.
You can benefit.
Because as you were telling me all the things you were thinking of talking about, I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. So me. Yep. I totally get that. And I will say that, something that I've been very aware of and becoming more aware of over the last few years, and I know a lot of our listeners are in this same space as well, is that we often, not only do we not feel emotion, but I've been paying attention as well to what we say to our kids. And, the fact that when, something happens, our first response is, you'll be okay. Come on, get up. You'll be right. You'll be right. And, don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Move on. And it's almost ingrained in us. Don't feel. And, I even caught myself. I had a really difficult conversation with a family member last week, and I had my husband, Greg, sitting next to me, and he was holding my hand as I was having this conversation. And I got off the call. I'd been really nervous going in. I got off the call and I was like shaky. I was really quite emotional. And he said, "Are you okay?" And I sort of had a little bit of literally a 10-second, couple of tears. And then I went, "All right, cool. Good, moving on, got to get on with life." And I just went to get up and I stopped myself and went, "Hang on a minute. Why do I feel this need to move on? Why do I feel this need to not feel? Why do I feel like the world requires me to do that?" And just this understanding that I think, this is just something that's been ingrained in us from such a young age.
It has.
Don't feel.
Yeah. And the research has come out that the way to appropriately address children and as a result ourselves is to describe in detail what happened and to label the emotion that you're feeling as a result of it. Yeah. And it down regulates the amygdala, it engages your parasympathetic nervous system and helps you calm down. And I like to take it one step further and say, what do you need? And maybe for you, Sam, you might have wanted a cuddle, or you might have wanted to, maybe you were exhausted from it. Maybe you wanted to close down your eyes and have maybe you wanted to journal. Maybe you wanted to go outside and get some fresh air. Like, it's different for everybody. It's a very personal thing, but you engaged in mindfulness. You were reflecting, hang on a minute, hang on. Yeah, that's your self-reflection. Becoming self-aware of, hang on, I've just realized I've done this and I'm not sure this is okay for me. And what do I really need? And self-regulation is the next bit that you were talking about. Like, what do I need emotionally? Yeah. And how do I address that? Because I know for myself, the way that I addressed stress, as an example, I would go home and I would open the fridge and I would eat cheese and drink wine.
Yeah.
Hands are up over here. You're like, oh, is that a stress? What?
Sorry, the problem. No, sorry.
What was the problem? Yeah. How is that a correlation? Yeah. So, and look, every single habit that we do has a rewarding component, and whether or not that reward is just to suppress emotions, it's still releasing dopamine, that feel-good chemical that makes you want to keep doing it again, which is why it's so easy to get addicted to the non-goal-directed behaviors, the habits, the impulsive brain. It's back to that same brain that's driving us. Yeah. So with you going through that process is a wonderful way. And we don't want to just get the kids to get up and go. We want to actually ask them, what happened there? Did you fall down? Or did you hurt your knee? Were you trying to walk up there? Oh, you poor darling. What are you feeling? I'm sad. Yeah. Oh, poor darling.
Yep. And something that's really interesting is I notice this also goes for the positive. It's interesting when you look at your kids and you pay particular attention and, part of me goes, man, I've broken my kids, like I can't undo it, because you look at what you do now and you think, how many times have I done that? How many times have I said that? And even when it comes to the positive. So, your kids will present you with a piece of work or something that they've done or a grade that they've got. And the first thing that we do is we tell them what to feel. Oh, I'm so proud of you. You've done a really great job. You must be really proud of yourself. Instead of actually stopping and asking them, how do you feel about that? Like, I love this. This is great. This is how I feel about it. But how do you feel about that? And it's really interesting when I started asking that question, the response from the kids is often not what I expected it to be. They're the ones that are coming in going, well, I'm okay that I got that grade, but I really think that if I had, worked a little bit harder on that last assignment, I probably could have got a better grade. So next time I'm going to try a bit harder. And if I give them the chance to actually stop and reflect on it for a sec, they're giving me the answer that instead of me putting words in their mouth and telling them what they should be feeling.
What this is coming up for me, which would probably add value a lot to your listeners, is the concept of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy meaning belief in your own capabilities. And self-efficacy, especially for your listeners, is the number one precursor for entrepreneurial success. Belief in your capabilities is the number one precursor for entrepreneurial success. There's so many systematic reviews on this topic, right? And so when you're saying, to your child, I like it, but what do you think? it's more like, I like the colors here. Like, I love all these colors here. Like, talk about the actions that are enabling the result. What are these what are you doing here that has enabled this result, you know? And that's what your listeners could be doing, is we really want to get to a point to build our own self-belief, to build our own self-efficacy, is to start to look for the actions, the attitudes, the behaviors, the things that you do that are like, oh yeah, I did that. I did rock up to that meeting, and I did, you know, step out of my comfort zone there, and I did send that email, and I did, you know, do that webinar, or whatever it might be. It's like collecting evidence to show you how good you are. So you're constantly looking for opportunities to build your self-efficacy. You know, like a lot of people go, do a gratitude journal at the end of the day. And, you know, like I've got my own tools, which I'll share with you guys, around hardwiring a happiness bias. But for me, it's like, I just want to rewire your brains for a self-efficacy bias, because I know it's going to help you. So at the end of the day, you can do your self-appreciation journal, like all the things I did really well today that like make me successful and capable and make me feel good, right? These are all the things that I did that enabled me. But I want everyone to do that throughout the day as well. Like, oh yeah, I did that. I did that. I did that. I gave that person really good eye contact, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So they're beautiful ways to really help. And I'm going to go to the next point, because you talked about negativity versus positivity. And your interests of the brain. This part might interest you, and that is, our brains are hardwired to have what's called a natural negativity bias. It basically means that we're constantly scanning the environment for threats to our existence. And that was brilliant when we didn't have houses to shelter us, and we had to be careful about whether or not that tree was poisonous or not, or whether or not that person was a member of our tribe or not, or whether or not that animal was a human-eating animal or not, right? We needed to scan the environment for those threats and dangers. But now we don't have those same fragile environments. We are still scanning for threats and dangers, including emails or text messages or funny looks from people or anything. We're constantly scanning for things that could be negative. And so we become really Teflon to positive and Velcro to negative.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It is. So in order to shift that, we need to create this awareness in general, like, oh yeah, I can see me doing that, you know, and I start to spiral out of control with these negative thoughts. And, you know, some of my clients would have said to me, you know, something like, my partner didn't kiss me goodbye in the morning. And then by the time I'd showered and got ready and drove into the office, I messaged him and asked him if we were getting a divorce. It's because we have these automatic negative thoughts because we have this natural negativity bias that is spiraling out of control, and it's sabotaging us. It's making us procrastinate. It's making us not take action on the things that we know we will get us to where we want to go. It stifles our business. It stops us from having good quality relationships because we have this negativity bias, which then leads to these automatic negative thoughts that spiral out of control and can really negatively influence the way that we act and behave.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I can think of so many, I know all of our listeners will be able to think of times where they've done this, where, you know, someone texts you with a weird text, or they write an email and it's a bit shorter than normal. And in your head, it's like, oh my gosh, I've lost that customer, and what am I going to do? And my business isn't what it was, and, you know, all this sort of stuff. And I was actually talking to our Accelerator group a little while ago about the survey that we do after every time we run a challenge, and we'll have hundreds of people complete this survey. And I love going through it to see what people have got to say, to, you know, to get that, I guess, feedback to help us to build the next one. But I catch myself looking for, you know, there'll be 300 like ultra positive 10 out of 10 comments, and then one that's like a 5 out of 10, and I'm looking for the 5 out of 10.
I know.
I catch myself going, why am I doing this? Why am I searching for the negative? And so, yeah, there's the face in the door, just like you were talking about before. Told you it would happen.
Distraction, as if we don't have enough distractions in our life.
I know, right? Yeah.
And that's a great example of automatic negative thoughts and a natural negativity bias. We're looking for it. We're looking for it. And one of the ways that you can counteract that, or at least dial it down, is by having that self-reflection to say, what happened? Like, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? Like, what's the thought? So let's just use this as an example. What thought would you have had if there was a 5 out of 10?
For me,
Mm-hmm.
probably, someone doesn't like me. I've not done a good job. I've got to do better. Yeah, not good enough. Yeah.
Okay. So what you want to do for these things is, because these are cognitive distortions, and they're in your impulsive brain, which is linked to emotion, and it's the habit center of the brain. So you're going to create your own confirmation biases around that distortion all the time. So needs to be a really contemplative approach. So you'd want to do this as a 4-part process. Imagine you had 4 columns, right? In the first column, it's like, what are my thoughts, or what conclusions am I drawing? I am not good enough. That's the ultimate conclusion that I heard you sort of saying as well.
Yeah.
And then you want to ask yourself in the second column, how is this true and how is this rational? And then you can write down all the ways it's true and rational. You can confirmation bias your heart out of it.
Yep.
And then the third column is, how is this not true and how is this irrational? And then you need to empower yourself to write down everything that is like a counter argument against that belief, that thought, I'm not good enough. And then you've got 3 columns: your thought, your for the thought, and you're against the thought. And now your goal is in the 4th column to write down, what is a more accurate thought? What's a more up to date? Like, we're upgrading, we're talking about our growth journeys. Like, we're constantly upgrading. Like, what's the upgraded version? What's this new version of me, And so that's a more balanced thought. And then you can insert whatever, what statement do you think you would end up putting in there? Like, if you just thought from the top of your head, I got 300 reviews. Most of them are like high. One of them was 5. You did your 4, I'm not good enough. You did your against, I'm not good enough. What do you think your more balanced statement would be in the last column?
I can't please everybody.
Yeah. Does it evoke an emotion of empowerment? Do you feel like it's dialing down
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a really good way to go through that process of some of those distortions that are causing you to think, feel, and behave in certain ways.
Yeah, I love that. And now, I guess, going down that same path, sort of as we're talking about being, I guess, mindful, which doesn't mean meditating so much as it means being mindfully aware of our thought processes. You mentioned tools, and I know that when we're talking about the way that we automatically go to thinking versus the way that we want to be thinking, that takes a little bit of a process. I mean, Greg and I were having this conversation at dinner last night, where we were talking about the fact that when we're in a calm and rational space, we can reflect on, the way that we communicate. We can talk about better ways to communicate and strategies that we're going to implement and things that we're going to do so that we can be there for each other when things get a little bit tough or you have a disagreement. But we were laughing about the fact that it doesn't matter how much you talk about it. When you get to that point where you are triggered or frustrated or angry, you go straight back to your old behaviors. And it doesn't matter how much you work on it. You seem to just go back to that, I guess, that part of your brain that is, the habitual part of your brain that's doing what it knows how to do. Yeah. So what tools can you give us to help us with that? So when we get to that point where, okay, a rational brain is taking over now, that habitual stuff is coming into play, how do we rewire those habits?
Yeah, so when you're having that conversation with Greg and you're having that beautiful conversation, you're accessing the reflective part of your brain we were speaking about earlier, the prefrontal cortex, executive functioning. It's not error prone, it is creative, and you're able to have these great intentions. And then there's something called the intention behavior gap, because when you're in the moment of doing the do, you're in your impulsive brain, the reactive brain, emotionally charged, and all of the great intentions and ideas go out the window, which is why a lot of weight loss fails.
Well, it's very much the same thing, isn't it?
Very much the same thing.
Tomorrow it's New Year's Day, and we're about to go into that now. When you guys hear this episode, we'll be in the new year, but you might have set yourself a New Year's resolution of, I'm going to lose some weight. And if it's after the 21st of January, when you're listening to this, 21st of January is International Quitters Day. Did you know that? The day that 80% of people give up on their New Year's resolution.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And it's because we're approaching it from a behavior change approach, not a habit change approach. And we haven't taken into consideration the way the brain works. There's so many different aspects, but essentially this is what you can do. So when it talks about tools, so the way in which you switch from that impulsive brain to your reflective brain. So you're in the moment, you're emotionally charged, you can feel it. It's like, oh my God, yes, I'm just going to do it anyway. The only thing that could really help you would be what's called delayed gratification. And it's resisting the temptation to act on what you're doing. And it's about empowering yourself with a pause. Okay. So you can say to yourself, I will yell at Greg for all the things he didn't do right. Or I will eat that thing because that's what I really feel like right now, you know, the imposter. I will have that drink. I will send this angry email. I will do these things. I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to give myself a few minutes just to pause so I can try and just step out. The way that I did that is literally like, okay, I will do that, but I'm just going to walk out the room and my feet are going to walk me out the room. So I call it the power of the pause, because that pause is delaying the gratification. It's stopping you from building the loop, the habit loop of doing it every time. So you're rewiring your brain and you're going, cue happened, like that trigger happened, and normally I would respond, but that trigger happened and I'm just going to walk away for a minute. And then during that time, it's usually up to about 10 minutes. That is all you need to build in the reflective decisions, and it gets easier over time.
Yeah. And I remember we had this conversation, actually, we were having a conversation about this in relation to alcohol a little while ago. I did an interview with an amazing friend of mine, Celine Egan, who decided in this podcast earlier in 2021, she decided to go 100 days without drinking. And we talked about that journey a little bit. And you and I were reflecting on that too. And you were talking about using that same technique, you know, when you're going to have that glass of wine and having that pause. So saying, I will have it, I will do it, but I'm going to go and do something else first.
It's very true. And that's one part. I mean, obviously, so for a habit has three key areas. And the first one is the cue or the trigger. So something that prompts you. When I get home, I will go and have wine and cheese, or when I'm with my friends, I will, or whatever. There's always a cue. And then there's the routine itself. So it's drinking the alcohol or eating the cheese. And then there's the reward. So it's unwinding from stress. Okay. So every habit has a cue. The habit itself is the routine. And then there's a reward. So what we're talking about is, you know, changing your triggers to be able to address the alcohol intake. What I want to say is it's actually, there's another part to it. And that is, you want to be changing or assigning a new value to drinking. If that's the issue at hand, you want to be assigning a new value, because at the moment the rewards are really high, consciously or unconsciously. You keep doing it and the reward is very high. That's why you're doing it, because it's so rewarding. You know, and for me, how I overcame my alcohol habit, I had to look at, well, is it that rewarding? Like what rewards have I associated with it? And for me, I grew up in the Barossa Valley. We had our whole family around flagship wines. I know going to bars and the elixir of the bars and the wine glasses and the decanters and the special wines. And, you know, then there's the social aspect and the unwinding and the sitting down and the, you know, self-care or whatever you want to say. Like you've created this list of rewards. But the reality is, if you want to reduce a habit, you need to have a look at the reward value. And so assigning a new reward to it, like alcohol makes me unproductive and it makes me not a better person. I'm not having good quality conversation with my husband after 2 drinks. I find that, you know, and then you go on the list of the pain or the reality of why that is the impact of doing that action. So all of a sudden, the reward is dialing down and the pain is dialing up. So you're approaching it from not only a trigger, but also the reward itself and reassigning the reward.
Okay. Awesome. So I want to kind of take a bit of a bum steer for a moment, because you gave me a list of things that we could chat about today. And I got really excited because I kind of want to do all the things. And particularly, I know that we've got a lot of people listening to us today that are in business, whether they're at the very beginning of their business or they've been in it for a while. And as we know, direct sellers are often people who, they've got this dream, this goal, this ambition to grow, a career and achieve some, amazing things in what they're doing. But the problem is that many of them don't necessarily know how to run a business yet. So they're kind of winging it and flying by the seat of their pants. And I'm not going to lie, I think we all do that when we jump into business. We go, it'll be easy, right? And then we realize really, really not. So one of the things that you jotted down here as well was you were talking about productivity, motivation. You've listed a few things in here. What tips can you give people? What can you say in relation to being productive, not being busy so much? Because I know that, we can get super duper busy, but still not achieve a lot. And, I see you, for example, managing to achieve amazing things and still stay really beautiful and calm through that whole process. And I know that doesn't happen overnight, but what can you add in that space to help some of our listeners out?
I think that to begin with, it's about crystal clear clarity about your ideal outcome and what actions you would be doing to lead to that ideal outcome. So that's the first thing. If I was to engage in goal-directed behavior to achieve the outcomes I want, what are the key things? Like what key things? What are the top 3 or 4 key things would I be doing in my business? The needle-moving activities. What are the needle-moving activities? Often it's leads and conversions, isn't it? Leads and conversions, like how do I develop leads and how do I convert them? And what's that process? And so you want to have that vision to begin with. And the other thing is what are the things that I'm currently doing that are not needle-moving? That they're just fillers. I'm not spending the time doing the things I really want to. And how do I remove some of the noise that I've got?
Yeah.
So now you've got this, if I did nothing more than these 3 or 4 things for my business, I would be doing really well. And here's all the things that I could probably reduce doing, stop doing, pause doing, that are really not going to help me. They're nice to haves, but it's not something I absolutely need to do right now. It's like if I was to get from here to here. So you kind of got to become pretty ruthless with what you prioritize and what you focus on. The second thing is consistency. Consistency is an interesting word. Everyone's like, be consistent. It's like, yes, I am well aware, but how the hell do I be consistent when there's so many competing priorities?
Yeah.
And it's the consistency in the actions that are going to enable you to be successful. And it's not so much having to do big actions each day. The thing that I encourage a lot of my clients to do is, what's the number one? If I did nothing more today, then this one thing, this will really propel me and my business forward.
Yep.
And it's kind of like the Eat the Frog by Mark Twain,
This one here?
Oh my God.
Yeah. One of my favorite books, and I've actually got the cards that just arrived yesterday.
Oh, so good.
Procrastinating and get more done in less time. Yeah.
How funny.
I know. I haven't pulled them out yet, but I'm sure they'll be fantastic.
The timing. So Eat the Frog is basically saying, do the hardest thing first.
Yeah.
Because that'll really help you with your productivity. So get your hardest thing done and then you'll be like, yes, I'm doing really well. Imagine if you had a scenario where each night you wrote down, here's the 3 or 4 things that if I did nothing more tomorrow, but these 3 or 4 things, it'll really catapult me and my business forward. Right? So the night before you do that, that's exactly what I did in my business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's often eating the frog. In business we do eat the frogs. It's the calling up a customer. It's a keynote presentation. It's producing a webinar. It's getting on to a live or something like that. It's the needle moving activities that are going to really, that's the focus. If I did nothing more tomorrow, but these 3 or 4 things is going to really catapult my business forward, and just mark how long it's going to take, 5 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, and see how that could roughly fit in your day. And then it's about applying yourself to setting up the structures to achieve those things consistently.
Now, I have to swear, I did not have that lined up. I didn't know you were going to talk about that. But do you know what the next book that's sitting on my desk here is for me to read over the Christmas holidays? I think this is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
But the one thing. There you go. I know this was actually recommended on a podcast recently. I was like, right. And it just arrived yesterday.
I'm getting it.
I'm getting it. The one thing.
The one thing is excellent. And that's exactly what I always say, and really the one thing is the Eat the Frog. That's the Eat the Frog, the one thing. But in reality, businesses can afford to probably do 3 things, even though it's just the one thing. If I did nothing more than this one thing, it'll catapult me forward. You do that one first and then approach the others.
Yeah.
It's about that clarity. And, there's another book, which isn't part of my favorite book list, but it's Focus, the Hidden Driver of Excellence by Dan Goleman.
Yep.
And he talks a lot about the brain
I don't
centers.
have that one sitting in front of me.
It's not there. You failed. No, I'm kidding.
That would have been really cool. But
that would have been freaky, to be honest. But, a lot of this comes back to this. If I did nothing more than these things here, and then obviously in order to achieve long-term behavior change, it requires a process. Yep. And when I mentioned the cue, the routine, the reward before, that's what we need to be focusing on. What's my cue? When I sit down at my desk, I will, with my coffee, I will approach the frog. I'll eat the frog.
Yep.
And why do I want to do it? Why is it so important for me? Because this is what a lot of people, even though people are passionate about their business, they're not connecting their actions to the outcomes in their business.
Yeah.
Why do I want to do this action? Why do I want to do a Facebook Live? Why do I want to be emailing everybody? Why is it so intrinsically important to me? That's your reward. And so you want to couple your actions in your business to the reward you get so you can create that consistency.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I love that. I feel like we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. We're really just scratching away at the surface of the iceberg here. I do have so many more questions I've got on my list to ask, but I am aware of time. But Kate, is there anything else just before we jump into our favorite questions? Is there anything else that you wanted to add, sort of, finish that up for our listeners as we close up today?
Yeah, I feel like some of the concepts that I've talked about today are really getting to reflect on you and becoming self-aware and self-regulating in the moment. And most people only see the results that they get in their life, right? It's like, this is where I am. And so we want to start tracing it back. And some of the ways you can trace it back is just to check in with yourself throughout the day to see how you're feeling. Like, how am I feeling? And to label the emotion. I'm feeling tired. Okay. Well, what can you do for this tiredness? Could you close your eyes for 30 seconds? So maybe it's every time you go to the bathroom, you can just check in with yourself to see how you're feeling. Like, what's the emotion that are coming up?
Sorry, I just thought you were like, every time you go to the bathroom, you just close your eyes and have a little 30-second.
You do. Honestly, it's such a good time because I'm not crowding your day.
I could just picture this now. Like, Greg's like, walking in the bathroom.
What are you doing?
Are you asleep again? Why are you asleep on the toilet? Yeah, sorry.
No,
so pictures here.
It's a good place to do it because you're already doing something. You're sitting there anyway. So just use that time to check in with yourself. Ask you what you're feeling. Yeah. And if you're overwhelmed, maybe it's about, okay, well, how do I address that? Maybe I could write down all the things that I'm overwhelmed about and then circle the eat the frog, circle the 2 or 3 things that are really going to be needle moving for my business. Yeah. Another beautiful tool is, what can you pause? Because I know a lot of people have this all or nothing mentality. I couldn't possibly stop something, but you could pause something for a bit. What could I pause in my business for a bit? What could I pause in my life for a bit? What could I pause? What could I start? And what could I continue that will really help me achieve my goals?
Yeah, that's really powerful. I love that. So pausing rather than stopping. You were talking to me before about all or nothing, and it's, wow, that is such a big, I guess, issue, I think, for people, particularly entrepreneurs or people that are in any kind of business, is I've got to do it all. I have to be good at it all. And particularly when we do learning, and this is something we talk about a lot when we do our webinars and our trainings, is we get them the very beginning to write down the one on their piece of paper, because what we want them to do is at the end not feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed because I have to do all of these things, all this stuff I just learned, now I have to implement it all, and I just feel overwhelmed and I feel like a failure already before I've started because I just realized how much I'm not doing. So, that mentality of pausing for a moment, what can I pause and what can I continue, or what's the one thing I can do right now? And it's really interesting as well, Kate. I know that I find it so hard to not say Katie, by the way, because
I don't mind. Let's just mix it up a bit.
Mix it up a bit. We'll go with Katie for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I notice about the one thing is the fact that when we do the one thing, aside from the fact that it gets rid of a lot of overwhelm, because now we're just dealing with one thing, when we achieve that one thing, which is so much more doable when we're only focusing on that one thing, when we achieve it, we actually feel so much more capable to do another thing.
That's the point.
It gets you moving, it gets the momentum happening, and so powerful.
And you would have heard about success breeds success potentially.
Yeah.
And really what the neuroscientific thing that's happening is you're hardwiring that habit into your brain and you're building self-efficacy because you evoked an emotion.
Yep.
So, you're coupling the reward with that action. And that coupling really helps you go, wow, I did it. I can do it. Wow. And then it's the next thing. And the reason why the one thing works is because it's also small. And so we want to start small. So if you want to start an exercise routine, you don't want to go in and do 60 minutes, you could just do 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you feel comfortable with. And this all or nothing mentality makes us think we need to do 60 minutes. But no, we work our way up to it. And so we build our self-efficacy on the way.
And celebrate it when we do the 5. Not feel like not focus on the negative, focus on what we did do. Yeah.
That's critical. I'm really proud of myself. In the moment, you really want to couple the action. That 5 minutes, I did that, and give yourself a yes. Boom, did it. Not like, oh, I didn't do the 50, I should have, none of that. It's just, well done me. And then tomorrow I'll go for as long as I want. And so it's the same application to business. I'll just do this one thing.
Yep.
And that's because it's a smaller, chunk down version of what you really want to be doing. And you're starting to build you're rewiring your brain.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. So much that we could talk about in this space. I love it so much. So look, let's jump into some questions. And Kate, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to, check you out, find out a little bit more about what you do, how can they connect with you?
Yeah. So they can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, my website, email. They can send me a smoke signal.
I'll pop all of your contact info into our show notes. So if anyone does want to reach out or check Kate out, find out a little bit more about what you get up to in your business, then definitely go find her there. So, all right, really important questions. Most important questions of the day right now. You ready?
Good.
All right. First of all, what is your favorite book for our Accelerator book list?
It's really interesting because I was thinking, there's so many, and I love books at different stages in the journey.
Yeah.
But I think overall, one of the things I really love is 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra.
Okay. Yep.
It's the book that I've highlighted significantly, and I've intentionally chosen that one because I think everybody would be expecting focus, the hidden driver of excellence.
Well, we'll put them both.
I knew you would.
Yeah, no, we'll put them both in. Our listeners love a good book. And, sometimes we get audiobooks thrown in there, podcasts, all sorts of things. But, I interviewed someone last week who was actually my personal business coach. And he said, Sam, you remember what I told you, that readers are leaders? And I went, yeah, okay. He goes, the day that they say that readers are audiobook listeners is the day.
Leaders are audiobook listeners. I think, and for me, it was hard for me to decide a book because my reading is clinical trials, systematic reviews, really high level evidence research papers. That is my go-to. So I was like, a book? I'd have to go back to the books. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, do you know, one of my frogs this year was actually to finish a book, and that was a growth book because I tend to start. I've got 4 books on the go right now.
All or nothing. Just saying.
Yep. And I get if they don't keep my attention, I move on to the next one, and I take in all of this information, but I'm not fully focusing on one thing.
Yeah.
So the frog this year was actually to break down reading a book and finish a book, do you know which book it was?
Which one?
It was Eat the Frog.
I had a feeling it was. And how did you go with it? Did you do it?
Yeah, I did. I actually changed up when I was reading in order to consume it because I'm typically a bedtime reader. I use it to go to sleep at night. So I'll lie in bed and I'll read, which is not the best time to read something that is growing you because my brain is winding down, not taking things in.
That's
right.
So
typically I go towards wanting to read like a novel, like a story, something that I want to go in, get stuck into, which means that I don't allow time to read something that's going to grow me. So a development book of some description or a business book. So what I did was I started to do exactly what you said and just start with 5 minutes a day at lunchtime. So when I go to sit down at lunch, instead of scrolling through my phone, I put the phone to the side and I do 5 minutes of reading my growth book, whatever that was, which in this case was Eat the Frog. And it was really interesting because the frog ended up being the reading in the first place. It was just a really hilarious scenario where it was every day. It was like, what's my frog? My frog is to do my 5 minutes.
My frog's my frog.
My frog's the frog. The frog is the frog. Yeah.
The frog's the frog. And so, so the cue was, can you hear the habit she formed? When I sit down at lunch, I will read 5 minutes. So she made it so small that she can't say no to it. And that's the most important thing, Sam. So small. If you wanted to do a little bit more in a day, fine. If you want to do a little bit less, whatever. The point is the consistency of that. And what was the reward for you?
Oh, it was just every day I'd come back and go, cool. Like I'd learned one new thing, or I'd picked up one new thing, or I was super proud of myself after doing that 5 minutes, because it was 5 minutes that I spent growing myself, not disappearing.
Well done. Proud of you.
Super awesome. So I will say,
So
guys,
cool.
this is, I love books. I have so many of them, got so many on the go, but that was something that I really wanted to do this year, was to really prioritize that. And that's,
Well
that's what I
done.
learned about doing that. So there you go. So that was question number 1. And we talked about that for way longer than I expected. So
sorry, guys.
Question number 2 is, if you could have a superpower, any superpower, what would that be and why?
Oh, I thought this was, if you had a superpower, what would it be? You know how some people are like, what's your superpower? What's your super strength? And so that's how I read it, actually.
Oh, no. If you could pick one, like if you could pick one that was like to be a speed reader, for example. You can't take that, by the way. I
was like, actually, that would be really valuable. Thank you. I would love to be a speed reader.
No cheating.
Flying, definitely.
I was just thinking that. It's kind of like a wrangling thing. Yeah. It's like, she's going to say flying next. I know.
That's funny. It's like, I dream about flying a lot.
Yeah.
There we go. Flying.
Okay. Awesome. And well, is that because you'd want to fly to places, or just because you want to be up in, above?
I think I just want to check a few things out and feel the freedom, like that flowy, free, the wind.
Yep. Wind,
like that would feel so good. Wind in the wings.
Wind beneath the wings. I got that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Right. Okay. It's been a long week. What's your favorite quote, Kate?
Well, my favorite quote is one of my quotes.
It's good. Branding. Go for it.
Isn't it so funny? It's like, well, I actually really like this. And it's, don't lower yourself to another's standards. Have them rise up to meet you.
Yeah. I love that. That's really awesome. Cool.
Yeah. I think a lot of people resonate with that. They're like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's empowering.
It is empowering. I love that. And the very last one, if you could go back in time and say one thing to your past self, what would that be?
Well, we've just been talking about consistency, and we've been talking about habits, and we've been talking about distortions and beliefs and self-efficacy. So I would not be saying one thing, but I'd definitely plant a seed, which is exactly what I do with my children, around their own self-belief and self-worth and inner self-talk. So it probably wouldn't be one thing, but if it was to be something around one thing, it would all be belief related.
Yep.
Like, I'm not good enough comes out a lot, and I'm not worthy, and I need a people please, and all of those things. So, every opportunity I get with my children, as an example, I will talk about self-belief, and I will translate books, and I will bring it into their own language to build their own self-efficacy. So, sorry, Sam, I couldn't do one thing, but it was something to do belief. There you go.
I feel like in a way that's cheating, but I am going to tell you a funny little story here. Do you remember the Friends episode where you've watched Friends, right? Of course, like everyone's watched Friends. Yeah. So there's the Friends episode where Chandler wants to learn he's trying to quit smoking. And so Rachel gives him this tape that he plays, hypnotherapy tape that he plays in his sleep. And it's like, you are a strong, capable woman. You do not need to smoke. And within, days, he's walking around, like
dressing
a woman.
Like a woman?
He's putting
oh my
on
God.
lip balm.
I love it.
And then Joey cottons onto it and goes, I reckon I could probably work with this. And so he records himself saying, you will buy Joey a meatball sub. And, and so Chandler's listening to this stuff in his sleep. So I was like, well, if this works on Friends, I'm pretty sure that this must just work in general, right? Because Friends is a true story. So
it's exactly right. Good correlation, babe.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I started talking to my kids in their sleep to reinforce their self-worth.
Oh my God, this is so good.
I wanted to know if this works. Like, I'm actually going somewhere with this, aside from telling a funny story. I want to know if it's real, because if it is, I'm going to keep doing it. But I would creep into their rooms at night. I still do it. I'd be like, you are amazing. You are going to conquer the world.
Oh my God, this is the best story ever.
And I just want to know, does it work?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's self-suggestion. There's self-suggestion, and there's research to show that when you're in a state of relaxation, like ultimate relaxation, probably not sleeping per se, but basically when your brain waves are aligned, like you've got an alignment, synergies with your brainwave, and that's when you're in like a transcendental state, right?
Yep.
You are more susceptible to learning and more susceptible to knowledge. So you can access that by listening to Largo music, so a specific tempo, or just getting into a relaxed state to enable that through like a meditation or something. And then you auto suggestions or self-suggestions to help you download the learning and rewire your brain. So there's something in it. I'm not sure if they're entirely asleep is the thing, but there's something in it.
Next time I'll just gently wake them up a little, just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I'll be like, oh yes, I think I got it.
Yeah. I love it.
So sweet.
You will clean the kitchen.
Yeah, that's what we. I love cleaning the kitchen. I love doing housework.
Yeah, I
love my mummy. Yeah.
Oh dear. All right. So, guys, look, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me, Kate. Katie. Look, it's
beautiful.
Just been
Don't forget
so
beautiful.
Great. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Yep. Legend, superstar, all of those things. Look, it has been amazing to reconnect with you. And I'm sure our listeners can hear why, I think you are such an incredible woman. You are inspirational. And, this isn't a new thing that you're able to speak into people this way. Like I said, you did this all of these years ago. You had such a strong impression on me, and I know so many others. And so I really want to thank you for standing up and going, you know what, like, I'm just going to make the world a better place, and I'm going to help people to be everything that they're meant to be in this world. And so thank you for standing up and first of all, doing business, because that's tough, and for being so passionate about what you're doing and who you're serving. So I really appreciate you coming in here today, and I can't wait to talk with you more about all of this. I think it's just awesome. And we will put some connection information into our show notes. We'll put the books in there, your favorite quote, which is yours, of course.
It's just mine. Sorry, guys. It's so weird. Weird.
Yeah. But look, thank you again so much. We really appreciate you.
Sam, thank you. What an amazing amount of words that you put into a few sentences to make me feel so special. And the feeling is absolutely mutual. I'm so glad to be able to be present on this podcast with you. And I hope the listeners got something from it. And I did want to say that for any of you listeners that do want to have a conversation and make a mini plan about how they want to improve their productivity or how they want to overcome habits or establish new ones, that I'm happy to actually offer them a free one-on-one session. So,
amazing.
I know that a lot of people find that very valuable. Did you hear that?
Is that thunder?
That was thunder.
Wow.
I'm in Queensland, guys. This is what happens at 1:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Summer in Queensland.
Summer in Queensland. So I'm sure you'll probably be able to put that in show notes as well.
The thunder. Oh, the free coaching session, guys. Yes.
Oh, Sam, so good.
Oh dear. Look, like I said, it's been a really long week, but thank you so much. Yeah, Kate, we will put that in the show notes. So guys, if you want to reach out and have a one-on-one free, I can't believe that you're offering that. That's amazing. So if anyone wants to have a session with her, I'm sure you'll have loads of people reaching out. So you might need to sort of spread that out a little bit, but we'll put that in the show notes for you guys. And definitely connect with Kate. I know that you guys will love her as much as I do. So awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners, guys. Have an amazing, amazing week. And we'll see you in the podcast again next week. But bye for now.
Bye.